poor girl returns a millionaire's wallet. What she uncovers changes everything in an instant. Mia Sanchez stood behind the counter of the Sunshine Diner, her bright eyes scanning the bustling room where the air danced with the laughter of regulars and the tantalizing aroma of pancakes sizzling on the griddle. Crowded with families and workers grabbing a bite, the diner buzzed with life. Yet, despite the warmth of the sun streaming through the windows, Mia's heart felt heavy. With each tip she received, she thought of her little brother, Ben, and their single mother struggling to make ends meet. The words of her late grandfather echoed in her mind. Value integrity, work hard, lift each other up. But would it really be so wrong to wish for something more? Her internal struggle erupted when she cleared a table near the back. A luxurious wallet lay abandoned on the seat, glinting slyly under the diner's fluorescent lights. Mia hesitated, her heart racing as she opened it, revealing a stash of cash that could ease the burdens of her family for months. A business card slipped out, showing the name Blake Harrington, one of the wealthiest men in town. Temptation clawed at her stomach. This could change everything, for Ben, for her mother. But another voice nagged at her, a whisper from her grandfather, urging her to do the right thing. Mia's hands trembled as she closed the wallet, her fingers brushing against the fine leather. What if someone found it? It didn't belong to her. She felt the eyes of the diner on her, slipping in and out of their mundane conversations, reminding her of the values she could not abandon. The decision tore at her insides, a fierce tug of war she couldn't ignore. Before she could even act, the determination inside her sparked above the fear. Returning the wallet could be a chance to stand up for what she believed in, even if her heart was weighty with doubt. She pushed the thoughts of money aside and stepped out of the diner, squinting against the Florida sun. The world beyond loomed vast and filled with uncertainty. Tracking down Blake was no stroll along the beach. Hours passed as Mia navigated through upscale areas that felt foreign to her. Memories of her grandfather's stories about sticking up for the little guy played like a broken record in her head, reminding her that courage often walks hand in hand with fear. When she finally spotted him outside a posh restaurant, a wave of anxiety swept over her. "Hello, Mr. Harrington," she stammered. For a moment, he wore an expression of bewilderment, as if trying to place her. But when she mentioned the wallet, recognition flickered in his eyes, followed by an appreciative smile. As they talked, she unearthed a surprising connection. Her grandfather and Blake had fought for the same cause, uplifting struggling families. Yet an unsettling feeling crept in as she learned about his business practices, allegations weaving around his name of exploiting locals and trampling the community. Her grandfather held so dear. The weight of responsibility buried deeper into her chest, a bright-eyed girl standing at the precipice of a revelation darker than anticipated. In the diner, amid the comfort of pancakes and smiles, an impossible truth sizzled between them. How could a man so charming represent the crushing hand of greed? The tension thickened. She felt the heaviness of her heart balance on the edge of moral collapse. Would Blake understand the ramifications of his choices? Could her courage inspire him to reconsider his path? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. The cafe hummed around them, patrons blissfully unaware of the storm brewing at the counter. Mia's defiance surged until her voice rose, confronting Blake head-on, forcing him to see the pain his actions caused. The very air crackled with unspoken words. The future of her community, her family, hung delicately in the balance, ready to tip in either direction, leaving them both at a crossroads where choices would shape destinies. Would determined defiance ignite change, or would it lead to heartache? Mia felt the darkening shadow of doubt settle in, ready to challenge everything she believed. Mia's heart pounded as she locked eyes with Blake Harrington, the weight of her convictions pressing tantalizingly against her conscience. The triumphant excitement of having returned the wallet had shifted into a whirlwind of uncertainty, each passing second intensifying the stakes of their encounter. Did she dare challenge a man who wielded such power? Someone whose lifestyle she could hardly comprehend. "Mr. Harrington," she began, her voice steadier than she felt. "You know what's happening in the community. People struggle to make ends meet while you profit from their misfortunes. Can't you see how your decisions affect their lives?" Blake appeared momentarily taken aback. He ruffled a hand through his impeccably combed hair, his charm faltering in the face of her earnestness. The contradiction between the man she had just met and the image of a ruthless businessman was palpable, igniting a flicker of hope within her, but leaving her feeling more precarious than ever. "I appreciate your concern, Mia, but you have to understand, growth comes with sacrifice. If we don't take risks, the town stagnates," he replied, casually leaning against the restaurant's polished exterior as if to assert authority over the very conversation. "Sometimes people need to be pushed." Hearing the words rolled off his tongue unnerved her. Was he serious? Their paths were diverging, but deep inside she felt a gnawing urge to dig deeper. Pushed where, exactly? In turmoil? Is profit worth the pain of those who lose their homes while you build your empire? An uneasy silence enveloped them. Mia glimpsed something flicker in Blake's eyes, a hint of defensiveness coupled with an inkling of respect. She was no longer just a waitress returning his lost wallet. She had become a voice challenging him in the very landscape where his power reigned supreme. Blake straightened, the confident facade he wore meticulously contoured to mask his vulnerability. "I admire your passion, but life isn't as straightforward as you might think. There are many layers to these issues," he stated, his tone shifting toward condescension. "Layers that people can't afford to peel back," Mia countered, driven by a combination of indignation and raw determination. Where was the line between being an opportunist and a leader? As they sparred, she began to unravel both what she admired in him and what repulsed her. The passionate undertone freely flowed, exposing cracks in the polished exterior. Perhaps Mia realized he didn't exist merely as a caricature of wealth, that underneath the layers of luxury there may be humanity worth awakening. She paused, gathering her thoughts amidst a storm of emotions. Could she turn this exchange into something transformative? A realization dawned. Her voice, though trembling, held power. You can be more than what you are. You can choose to uplift instead of exploit. Don't you want to be a part of something greater? For a fleeting moment, Mia saw him hesitate. This was not merely an irrelevant conversation. The possibilities hung like fragile glass baubles at a market stall, waiting for him to shatter or to choose revival. Could he genuinely change, or did he already know deep down that altering his course would mean relinquishing a part of himself? "In your world, Mia," Blake said, his voice now quieter, "change is a costly commodity." The fear lurking in those words struck her. It illuminated the stakes not just for the community, but for her own life's direction. What did she want? Did she wish to engage in this battle, or was she meant for something different, profundity without confrontation? Yet a part of her longed for meaning in her struggle, aware of her own potential to make a difference. Tension hung between them, a fragile truce ripe with uncertainty and unanswered questions. Perhaps it was not merely about confrontation or alliance, but about awakening the part of him that clung to compassion. The desire to incite change swirled within her like a tempest, leaving her craving more. "We'll see, Mia," Blake said cryptically, the weight of the unfinished dialogue heavy in the air. "Perhaps it's worth exploring further. Until then, I consider your perspective." As he turned away, Mia felt her resolve deepen. The path she was carving was unfamiliar, yet exhilarating. She aimed to bridge the gap between ambition and accountability. Where would this newfound determination lead her? But a nagging thought lingered. Had she planted a seed for change, or merely stirred another layer of conflict? She must find the answer to that question. It was only a matter of time before their fates intertwined again, and Mia was determined to seize the opportunity. Thus, she steeled herself for the path she was committed to forging, a journey rife with uncharted territory and unfolding consequences. What lay ahead for her journey remained shrouded in mystery, awaiting her next move. As she walked away from the restaurant, a shiver of anticipation trailed down her spine. Reconciliation or confrontation, dependency on her choices would herald the next chapter. Time hadn't just steered her into a conversation, it was propelling her into something far greater. Would she find the courage to wield her voice in a system stacked against her? Mia awoke the next morning with the remnants of her confrontation with Blake lingering like a vivid dream. Her heart was still racing, the echoes of their exchange swirling through her mind. Choices, consequences, the stark divide between wealth and want. As she prepared herself for another shift at the diner, she reflected on the shift she felt within herself, the embers of courage igniting a fierce resolve. The diner buzzed as usual, the familiar sounds of plates clattering and patrons chatting filling the air. Yet for the first time, Mia felt detached from the incessant rhythm of everyday life. She moved through the motions, but her thoughts lingered on Blake and the complexities of his world. She had challenged him, revealed a flicker of vulnerability, and it had left her sparked with purpose. "My coffee, Mia," a customer hollered, pulling her back to reality. She forced a smile, pouring coffee into a chipped mug. Grief and ambition seemed to dig their claws into her with every interaction, and she realized she couldn't go back to simply existing. She had to act. She finished her shift and returned home, her mind racing with ideas. She was just a waitress, but the spark that had ignited during her conversation with Blake compelled her to consider how ordinary people could influence the decisions made at the apex of power. Taking a deep breath, she pulled out her notebook, the one she had used for scribbling customer orders. Each page was now a blank canvas for her thoughts, her budding plans. Hours melted into moments as she penned down a manifesto of sorts, ideas swirling from how to reach out to other struggling folks in the community to brainstorming ways they could collectively voice their concerns. Her heart raced with each word. She envisioned community meetings, outreach programs, dialogues for change. With each stroke of her pen, the realization dawned. She could be more than a mere spectator in a world that felt rigged against her. Yet, lurking within her newfound ambition was a gnawing fear. What if she failed? What if they rejected her ideas? Doubts clouded her determination, but each moment of hesitation was met with a recollection of Blake's hesitant expression, his subtle vulnerability as he heard her challenge. She pushed past the timid voice whispering for her to step back. If she was going to enact change, she had to overcome the swirling chaos inside her. Mia placed her notebook aside and decided to gather her thoughts. She would need allies, partners who understood the pulse of the community and were willing to meet the eyes of those in power, just as she did. Gathering the courage she found during her earlier confrontation, Mia made a plan. Tomorrow, she would speak to Marisol, a close friend who owned a small local grocery store. Marisol had seen the struggles firsthand and often spoke of wanting to effect change. Together, they could begin forming a foundation, an organized front that could challenge decisions made in high-rise offices where people like Blake operated. As the sun dipped below the horizon, settling twilight dusk into the sky, darkness closed in around her. The weight of her ambitions bore down heavily, a mix of hope intertwined with the dread of failure. Could she convince others to join her in the pursuit of something greater? In that moment, an unsettling thought struck. What if Blake's influence was too great? What if, despite her plans, he dismissed them? This nagging sensation felt more daunting than anything she had faced that night. But changes often began from small, seemingly insignificant sparks, didn't they? As she lay on her small bed, the uncertainty of her choices loomed large, her breath catching as the possibilities stretched before her, a vast landscape waiting to be explored. It was time to lay the groundwork, but would she have the strength to face the odds? The next day, her conversations with Marisol could either solidify her ambitions or unravel them entirely. Her heart thudded in anticipation, ready to uncover what lay ahead. The dawn would soon arrive, ushering in her chance to weave a narrative of change or to confront the fear of remaining stagnant. The stakes felt impossibly high, yet an undercurrent of excitement flowed through her veins. What alliances would form? What challenges would arise? The moment of truth was close at hand. As the first light broke through her window, casting soft shadows across her room, Mia's heart raced with anxious energy. The sun felt like a spotlight illuminating her path, uncertain yet wholly pivotal. She understood that today was a day of reckoning, not just for her. It could ripple into lives beyond her own. The shower washed away her lethargy, but it could not cleanse the doubt staining her resolve. She dressed with purpose, each article of clothing a statement of intent. She wore her favorite green blouse, a reminder of the hope her name embodied. Today, she would channel that hope into action. At the diner, the familiar buzz surrounded her, but it felt different, charged with anticipation. Each interaction with customers felt layered. Their casual conversations took on new significance. She jotted down the usual orders, but couldn't shake the feeling that each moment resonated with the potential for change. After work, Marisol's grocery store loomed large in her mind. As the clock ticked down to the end of her shift, Mia's thoughts fixated on the meeting. What if Marisol didn't share her vision? What if she felt overwhelmed by the enormity of venturing into advocacy? Those trepidations coiled tightly within her like a spring ready to snap. But beneath that fear, another feeling bloomed, igniting her resolve. The urge to explore possibilities outweighed the anxiety gripping her heart. Finally, when her shift ended, Mia made her way to Marisol's. The shop was small but bursting with color. Bright vegetables stacked high, the sweet scent of ripe fruit creating an inviting atmosphere. Marisol was waiting behind the counter, her hands busy with fresh produce. "Mia," she exclaimed, her face lighting up, "I was just thinking about you. What's going on?" The simplicity of the question cut through Mia's pressure. It was an invitation to let the weight of her ambitions spill forth. "I've been thinking about how we could do something more, Marisol, not just survive, but push for change. Together, I know we can make a difference." Marisol's brow furrowed slightly, the initial surprise mixing with curiosity. "What exactly do you mean?" Mia took a deep breath, steadying herself. "I want to get people talking, share their challenges, and collectively address the issues in our community, the struggles that people like us face every day. I think we can create a platform to voice our concerns and demand change." The moment hung thick in the air. Marisol's gaze shifted, considering Mia's proposition. For a heartbeat, Mia held her breath, desperate for encouragement or approval. Then Marisol spoke. "It's a big idea, Mia, but how do we even start?" That question propelled Mia into a torrent of thoughts, sweeping her away with excitement. "We can start small, gather people in a local park, share stories, and from there build a connection. The more we share, the more we amplify our voices. This can spark something much larger." Silence wrapped around them for a moment, the gravity of Mia's proposition palpable. Marisol's eyes twinkled with a complex mix of surprise and inspiration. "I admire your passion, but what if it doesn't work out? What if people don't come?" The question struck at Mia's core. It was the old fear surfacing, inviting doubt back into her mind. What if it does work? What if it changes everything? She countered, surprising even herself. The fervor in her voice felt authentic, a rare blend of vulnerability and strength. They brainstormed for a time, feeding off each other's energy, the store buzzing with possibility. Details emerged, plans materialized, and what had begun as a mere whisper of change blossomed into a coherent strategy. But underpinning the burgeoning excitement was an undercurrent of uncertainty. How would they actually reach those who needed to be heard the most? The thought loomed like a shadow, a reminder that the climb ahead would be steep. As they wrapped up their discussion, Marisol's expression shifted. "You know, we can't do this alone. We'll need others, those willing to risk themselves as well." Mia nodded, the reality settling on her. They'd need commitment, loud voices, willing to challenge conventions, not just passively accept them. She could feel the weight of this challenge tugging at her, stirring both eagerness and fear. Gathering courage, Mia met Marisol's gaze. "I'll talk to the others in the neighborhood. It's time for us to step out of the shadows." As they exchanged a determined smile, a subtle, unfathomable shift occurred within Mia. Her path was no longer solely defined by her past experiences, but shaped by her willingness to confront the future head-on. But as the words hung in the air, a nagging thought clawed at her. What if those she reached out to were satisfied with the status quo? What if her efforts unraveled before they even began? Time would tell whether their ambition would light the way or cast a long, beleaguering shadow of failure. The thrilling uncertainty danced before her like a mirage, beckoning her forge ahead into an uncharted territory of risk and reward. With newfound clarity, Mia stepped out of the grocery store. For the first time, she felt the weight of her fears lifting, revealing a thirst for change that would not be silenced. Could she truly catalyze a movement, or would she find herself confronted by a world too unwilling to listen? Tomorrow, she would face this challenge head-on, diving deeper into the sea of unknown possibilities. She quickened her pace, ready to unearth what awaited her next. Mia awoke the next morning, anxiety swirling around her like an unwelcome fog. The bright light poured in, but its warmth felt stifled by the weight of expectation she had placed upon herself. She sat up, aware of the challenges that sobered her dreams the night before. Today marked the start of her outreach, the tentative beginning of a journey that could either lift her community or leave her isolated in failure. After a quick breakfast, she pulled out a pen and paper. Ideas floated in her mind, but each one carried the heavy burden of what-ifs. The decision to approach residents wasn't just about sharing her vision. It was about confronting her own fears of rejection. Her heart thrummed with uncertainty, but she pushed forward, jotting down potential names of people to reach out to, neighbors she knew would resonate with the call for change. At the diner later, Mia moved through the bustle, interacting with customers while her mind spun with thoughts of who would be willing to engage her now. She served coffee to a familiar face, Mr. Halverson, a retired schoolteacher known for his no-nonsense attitude. He had always provided advice wrapped in tough love, and for some reason she felt drawn to speak up before moving on. "Mr. Halverson, can I ask your opinion about something?" she ventured, uncertain yet eager. "Sure, Mia. You look troubled. What's on your mind?" His inquiry unleashed a torrent of words. "I want to start a project, something that connects our community, shares our challenges, but I'm terrified that no one will care." He regarded her with sharp, scrutinizing eyes. "You think you're the only one struggling with this?" he replied, a hint of sarcasm threading through his tone. "You'd be surprised how many feel the same, but lack the courage to say it." Encouraged by his reaction, Mia pressed on. "What can I do to spark a conversation, to motivate others to openly share their stories?" He leaned back, considering. "People are more likely to participate when they believe they are part of something. Show them you genuinely care, make it personal. No one wants to be just another face in the crowd. The exchange ignited something within Mia. Her legs felt lighter as she walked away, the challenge transforming into a tangible mission. She could make this personal, not just a campaign, an authentic dialogue about their lives. The rest of her shift flew by in a whirlwind of ideas and strategies, each moment fueling her determination. She envisioned gathering in small groups, living room discussions, coffee catch-ups where it was safe to voice frustrations and dreams alike. After shutting down the diner for the night, Mia walked through the quiet neighborhood, her mind racing with apprehension and promise. She could still feel the echo of Mr. Halverson's words. Making it personal was crucial, but how could she break through layers of complacency? What if they were too scared or too comfortable to engage? As she approached her block, those questions gnawed at her, mingling with a new feeling, a dawning understanding that vulnerability could become her greatest strength. Sharing her own story might illuminate others, inviting them to participate in a conversation that mattered. Mia reached her doorstep, resolved to start with a simple gathering. She would invite a few trusted neighbors, those she knew were struggling silently. But the gravity of the task determined her hesitations. What if she couldn't articulate her intent clearly? What if they didn't connect with her vision? Within the safety of her home, she pondered her fears further, her heart pounding like a snare drum. Was she cut out for this? She had no formal training in leadership or advocacy. All she had was a deep desire for connection. Could that possibly suffice? But more importantly, what if she stumbled upon something deeper, a shared pain that linked them? As the weight of her thoughts thickened, something shifted within her. There was power in being open, the potential for stories to weave bonds that could not only connect them, but propel them toward healing. Her resolve tightened, and without overthinking it, she picked up her phone and began drafting messages, inviting 5 people she trusted. Each text felt like a step away from isolation and towards possibility. As she hit send, a wave of exhilaration intertwined with uncertainty swept over her. She was ready to confront the delicate balance between aspiration and apprehension. Yet again, doubts reared their heads. What if no one showed up? What if they dismissed her ideas outright? A ripple of anxiety cascaded through her, blending beautifully with an undercurrent of hope. Mia blinked back, her uncertainty steeling herself. This was her moment, a personal leap into the unknown that was entirely hers to shape. But just as she prepared her heart for the journey ahead, a horrifying thought struck. What if she did everything right and still failed? Would anyone care? Tomorrow, she would face these people, but could they listen with open hearts and minds? What unsettled truths would emerge? As the sun sank below the horizon, Mia rested her head on the pillow, a restless excitement brewing anew. She was about to venture into a dialogue, her greatest challenge yet. Mia awoke the next day with a strange mix of anticipation and trepidation. The sunlight streamed through her window, but instead of feeling invigorated, it underscored the weight of her impending gathering. There was a palpable charge in the air, a sense of possibility laced with the potential for rejection. She dressed thoughtfully, wanting to project confidence while still feeling true to herself. As she slipped on a simple yet vibrant sweater, she wondered if the way she presented herself could affect others' willingness to engage. She rummaged through her closet for a pair of jeans that felt comfortable yet expressive. A subtle clash of colors felt perfect, a visual reminder that connection often came from both vulnerability and authenticity. After a light breakfast, she returned to her notes. Every detail needed to be precise, from discussion topics to the snacks she would offer, each element forming the foundation of what she hoped would be an inviting atmosphere. Her heart raced as she began scripting an introduction, unsure whether the words she chose could truly convey her intention. As she practiced saying them aloud, her voice trembled at first, revealing her uncertainty. "I want to talk about the things we don't often say but deeply feel. I want to create a place for our stories." The phrasing still felt awkward, and the familiar wave of doubt crashed down. Would her words resonate? Would they capture the connections she yearned to build? Determined not to let her doubts overpower her, she shifted her focus to what she could control, her approach to the gathering. What did she genuinely want to achieve besides connection? It struck her in that moment. Her goal wasn't just to facilitate a conversation, but to inspire self-exploration in those around her. She envisioned a small circle of neighbors, each sharing their tales, their struggles, and their triumphs. If she could foster an environment of safety where they could express their truths without judgment, perhaps they could all begin to understand their interconnectedness. What had Mr. Halverson said? No one wants to be just another face in the crowd. With renewed determination, Mia began relocating the chairs in her living room. She positioned them in a circle, creating an inviting space that suggested equality and intimacy. A small table in the middle would hold her carefully selected snacks, a mix of sweet and savory, creating a relatable ambiance. As she set the scene, however, a deep-seated fear threatened to surface. What if this effort unraveled? What if the very air became thick with silence due to possible discomfort? Clearly, she was battling her own insecurities. Mia took a deep breath, consciously shifting her mindset. The purpose was far greater than her fears or potential failure. Today could signify a turning point, her chance to break through isolation, not just for herself, but for others too. Sharing her own narrative might reveal common threads of aspiration and pain that had long gone unspoken. Hours passed in a flurry of preparations. Each moment spent organizing was a counterweight to her anxiety. As the clock ticked closer to the gathering time, doubt began morphing into excitement. What hidden strengths could emerge from this encounter? Could her own story, her own vulnerabilities, catalyze a call to open hearts around her? Around 2 o'clock, Mia glanced at her phone. 2 of the invitees had confirmed their attendance. That alone ignited a spark of hope within her. She was not alone in this endeavor. With every tick of the clock, the decision felt manifestly correct. As the doorbell rang, each chime reverberated within her chest, an electric reminder that this was real. She opened the door to find Lily and George, both with warm smiles that immediately eased her tension. The casual introductions flowed, but underneath the small talk lay a promise, not yet revealed but undeniably tangible, an unspoken willingness to connect. Mia invited them into her living room, motioning toward the seats. "I thought we could..." Her voice faltered, exposure laced with eagerness. But no sooner had she begun to articulate her intent than another ring of the doorbell interrupted. Each chime pulled at her, insisting on the urgency of vulnerability. With each new arrival, Mia felt both excited and increasingly aware of the gravity of what was unfolding. Here they were, her neighbors, each facing their unique struggles, showing up for something that could change everything. As they settled into the space she'd curated, Mia's breath caught. What she could share and what they might unveil felt charged with potential. Yet shadows of uncertainty lingered at the edges of her excitement. What unspoken truths would emerge from their personal stories, and how would they affect her carefully constructed narrative? This was it. The moment of truth approached. Would vulnerability foster connection or reinforce isolation in unexpected ways? As the discussion began, she would confront her own reservations head-on, teetering on the precipice of possibility. Mia took a deep breath, steadying her resolve. There was no turning back now. She had taken that leap. Yet, as the first words began to unfold, the intensity of her reality surged, a truth she'd have to face, whether she was ready or not. Who among them would be brave enough to share the hardest parts of their lives?
and what revelations awaited her in their experiences. As the conversation began to flow, Mia felt an inexplicable wave of trepidation cascade over her. The subtle tremors in her hands betrayed the calm facade she struggled to maintain. Lily spoke first, diving right
into a poignant story about her own struggles with self-acceptance. The vulnerability in her voice acted as a grounding force, resonating with Mia's own fears. Mia tried to absorb the intensity of Lily's experience, nodding along as her mind wrestled with her insecurities. Should she share her own story? Was it too soon? As each neighbor took turns revealing different facets of their lives, Mia recognized the power of shared narratives. The amalgamation of laughter and tears forged a tentative bond, slowly dismantling the walls of isolation that had held her captive. George, with his steadfast demeanor, shifted the conversation toward their dreams, injecting a new energy into the room. "What about the dreams we sacrifice to fit into molds?" he asked, his words hanging delicately in the air, inviting further exploration. Mia felt a collective sigh as everyone nodded, acknowledging the unspoken sacrifices they had all endured in pursuit of acceptance. A part of Mia longed to vocalize her own burden, her ambition for more, her desire to break free from mediocrity. But as the discussion deepened, she found that her own narrative was slipping just out of reach. The fear of judgment loomed heavy on her shoulders. What if her aspirations were dismissed as naive? What if they saw her as nothing more than a dreamer? Yet, amidst the tension, a flicker of determination ignited within her. Mia leaned forward, heart racing, choosing to feel fear as a catalyst for growth. "I've often felt trapped between who I am and who I want to be," she confessed, her voice slightly wavering but resolute. "I want to create something meaningful, to connect not just with you here, but with something larger, my own dreams." The room fell into a thoughtful pause. In that moment, she sensed a shift. Vulnerability introduced vulnerability. Her statements birthed contemplative glances, understanding coursing through the air. George broke the smile with a smile. "That's exactly it. We all filter our dreams through the expectations of others." With each revelation, the dynamics of the conversation evolved. Neighbors donned the role of active listeners, a safe haven crafted in the tenderness of shared experiences. Mia breathed in this atmosphere of connection, finally feeling the weight of her earlier fears dissipate. An inner resolution began to shape. This was not just about breaking barriers for herself, but steering her peers toward their potential, much like she yearned for herself. As stories continued to flow, Mia found her voice growing stronger. With each personal share, she battled the specter of doubt, realizing that vulnerability might not lead to rejection after all. It served as a bridge, linking them together in their human complexities. But amid the warmth of understanding, surfaced an unease she could not shake. She began to wonder, had she been too candid? Was she exposing herself while others remained guarded? The delicate balance of openness weighed heavily on her mind. Through the ensuing discussions, a deeper layer of self-awareness unfolded. Conversations bifurcated, veering toward authentic fears and buried dreams. Mia felt propelled, newfound clarity that wavering vulnerability could be an act of strength. Yet this revelation sparked an unsettling realization. While she helped others through their struggles, she would inevitably confront her own. As the gathering began to wind down, it was punctuated with laughter and shared insights. Mia sought solace in this jubilant atmosphere, though the tendrils of unresolved anxieties began to swirl, demanding her attention. How would she move forward? With every personal story exchanged, a crucial question nagged at her. Was she truly ready to embrace the unknown journey that lay ahead? In the final moments, as she prepared to usher them out and thank everyone for their honesty, a thought gripped her.
What convergence of experiences awaited them when they gathered again? And would they still feel the same push toward vulnerability next time, unearthing deeper truths buried within those safe conversations? The prospect of their next meeting loomed large, a tantalizing weight resting on her shoulders. The following week, Mia walked through the front door, her nerves aflame with anticipation. She had been mulling over the conversations from the last gathering, replaying snippets in her mind, considering not only her commitments to the group, but her own developing narrative. Each encounter served as a mirror, reflecting not just her growth, but exposing the raw edges of her reality. Determined to embrace this vulnerability head-on, she prepared a few thoughts she hoped to share, a blend of her past experiences and her aspirations. The moment she stepped into the living room, she noticed the warmth of familiarity amongst her neighbors' faces. This small space felt less like an arena of judgment and more like a sanctuary of growth. George, as if sensing her trepidation, greeted her with an encouraging smile. "Ready for round two?" he asked, a playful glint in his eye. Its lightness somewhat eased Mia's anxiety, but a deeper sensation fluttered within her, a mix of excitement and dread. This time, she needed to push further, not just for herself, but for the others also. As the conversations ignited, laughter cascaded through the room, and views were exchanged. But Mia sensed a shift. The air was thick with unexpressed fears and ambitions. It was palpable, a shared struggle beneath the surface, and she felt it beckoning her to act. As she shared insights from her childhood, how she had learned to mask her reality for acceptance, the room hung on her words. "I learned to fit what others expected of me, being the quiet, compliant girl who caused no ripples," she said, her voice steadying. "But inside, I always wanted to be the girl who set off fireworks." A glimmer of recognition flashed through her peers. It was clear they felt her struggle. Each story sparked something deeper within her, a realization that their fears were perhaps less personal and more universal. Through these honest exchanges, Mia began to grasp that her past did not have to dictate her future. The echo of her younger self, fearful, seeking approval, mingled with an emerging vision of someone braver, someone willing to take risks. With each narration from her neighbors intertwined with her own, they interwove strands of vulnerability and resilience. Mia began to contemplate how to transfer this into tangible actions. How could she share these insights in a larger space, beyond the confines of their cozy living room? Before she knew it, she found herself suggesting a dream board project where every participant could visualize their future aspirations. "Like a map," she explained, excitement bubbling within her, "we could each create something that highlights our goals. It's time we stop fitting into molds and start carving our own paths." The room responded with murmurs of intrigue, an invitation to explore the raw fabric of their dreams. But panic washed over her. Had she overstepped? What if they were not ready to take that leap? As silence filled the air, she wrestled with her growing self-doubt. Then she saw Lily, her eyes filled with eagerness, chiming in, "I think it's brilliant. It's for us to envision where we want to go." A wave of relief surged through Mia. Someone understood. Others began to nod, voices springing into new life, tentatively committed to the audacious venture. As the evening drew to a close, Mia felt a sense of empowerment wash over her. The walls she had battled to dismantle were evaporating. Yet, lurking beneath her excitement was an unsettling question. Where would this newfound journey take them? What would be revealed as they confronted their deepest aspirations? With the collective nudging of their dreams lying ahead, Mia couldn't shake a lingering thought. Was she prepared to face the challenges this path might unfold, both for herself and for them? With her heart racing, she awaited their next encounter, knowing it could be the moment that changed everything. Mia's thoughts spiraled as she prepared for the next gathering, each potential outcome weaving a tapestry of anxiety and hope. The flicker of excitement from last week's meeting was now interlaced with anxiety about the realities this project could unearth. Would her neighbors truly embrace the vulnerability of unveiling their dreams, or would they retreat into their shells, too fearful to expose the treasure of their aspirations? On the appointed evening, she arrived with a notebook in hand, filled with ideas and inspiration she'd gathered over the week. The rhythmic pulse of her heartbeat nearly drowned out the sounds of chatter as she entered. This time, her mind was saturated with the understanding that they were sacred competitors in the realm of expression. Each had a unique journey that warranted respect. As she settled into the group, she realized the stakes were higher now. Each person wasn't just sharing, they were risking. She could sense subtle transformations blooming around her. George, who had always been the glue of their gatherings, seemed more thoughtful, delving deeper into his aspirations. A bubbling energy coursed through the room as conversations flared to life, spurred by the promise of the dream boards. Yet, the shadows of hesitation lingered, and Mia felt the pull of responsibility weigh upon her. Tonight,
"Let's push ourselves further," she initiated, her voice wavering slightly but firm. "Let's not just dream. Let's confront what holds us back. What fears stand in the way of making these dreams a reality?" The room fell momentarily silent. Her challenge dared to cut through the complacency that often blinded them. Lily, her unwavering supporter, responded first. "I fear judgment. What if we put these dreams out there and they crumble? What if we're just kidding ourselves?" Mia nodded, intrigued by the honesty radiating from Lily. "But what if instead we find the courage to support one another? What if we discover strength we never knew we had?" The words flowed from her, locking on to the tension, challenging each member to confront their limiting beliefs. Slowly, others began to vocalize their fears, a sacred exchange filling the air. Some expressed worries of finances, while others feared failure. They shared the familiar story of stifled ambitions, the sinking feeling of obligations and expectations wanting to keep them at bay. Mia felt a surge within her. This is where we begin. Each fear named is a weight lifted from our shoulders. Every dream we board can start to take shape. Let's create not just a vision, but a strategy, a tangible path we can follow. She illustrated her vision on a notepad, mapping out practical steps. As her peers began to contribute, sharing raw ambitions alongside their obstacles, their growth was palpable. The dream boards were more than simple art. They became a battleground for inner confrontations, outwarding connections between aspirations and the grit of everyday life. Still, an inner gnawing pulled at Mia. Why was she so invested in this journey? What was her ambition beyond these walls? Contemplation sparked the realization that she had ignited a fire within herself. She wanted to lead, not just as a participant, but as a beacon for change. Yet, as they immersed themselves in their dreams, dread crept back in. Were they all prepared for the fallout of their revelations? What if the truths they unearthed shattered their previous identities? The discussion deepened, and Mia's heart raced as she read the expressions of her companions. Hope, intermingled with fear, filled the room. This moment hung thick with possibility, yet shadowed by the daunting uncertainty looming ahead. Would they all support one another through the storm? With an uneasy thrill coursing through her, Mia knew they were on the precipice of something significant. But the hesitation was still there, and she could sense the tension shifting. The promises made tonight could lead to vulnerabilities once exposed, straining bonds they'd forged. Would she truly be able to handle whatever fallacies were set in motion? As the meeting came to an end, it hung in her mind like a siren call. Would she take the lead into uncharted territories, or succumb to the very fears they had just navigated together? Each heartbeat felt like an echo of a decision yet to come, pressing her further into the unknown. The uncharted path stretched ahead, whispering questions of courage and resolve as she prepared for the next stage of their journey. What would the fallout from their revelations reveal? Mia stood at the threshold of the Sunshine Diner, feeling the comforting hum of morning buzz all around her. Yet her heart raced with an urgency that was unmistakable. The gatherings had transformed her world. They had become a sacred circle of strength, stories, and shared dreams. Each meeting peeled back layers of isolation, revealing the connective tissue of their struggles and aspirations. No longer just a waitress trying to get by, she was a catalyst for change. Weeks of dedicated conversations had fostered bonds that transcended mere community. George, Lily, and the others were beginning to reflect on their shared experiences, not just as individual voices, but as a collective force determined to uplift their own neighborhood from the constraints of complacency. Mia had evolved into a beacon, illuminating the path not only for herself, but also for the myriad of potential within her neighbors. On this particular day, her vision loomed larger. Each story she had heard was a film reel looping in her mind. It was no longer enough to simply meet and share. They were ready to take concrete steps toward those dreams. The dream boards had sparked a fireside conversation about action, anchoring them in purpose. Encouraged by their resilience, Mia crafted a framework, one that interwove advocacy with personal growth, firmly rooting their ambitions in tangible strategies. Today, she would unveil her most ambitious project yet, a community summit, an event to amplify their voices, a space for storytelling that would reach beyond their living rooms and into the wider community. The thought sent shivers of excitement coursing through her veins. If she could turn their shared dreams and concerns into a public forum, it would become a turning point for everyone involved. Concrete steps leading toward advocacy could change the very fabric of their lives. As she approached her friends at the diner, determination radiated from her. "I have an idea," she announced, her voice imbued with newfound confidence. They paused, intrigued by her fervor. "Let's hold a community summit, an event where each of us can share our stories and concerns, inviting others who struggle to join us. It's time we stepped into our power." The table erupted with enthusiasm. George's eyes shone with anticipation, and even timid Lily leaned forward, a spark igniting within her. Together they started tossing out ideas, each one building on the other. Every hypothesis turned into actions. Who would speak? What would be covered? The logistics of reaching out to more community members. In the following weeks, Mia dedicated herself to this mission. She engaged in conversations with local leaders, leveraging her voice and momentum she had built. Each call, each encounter brought her potent reminders of her capacity to affect change. She rehearsed her speaking points relentlessly, envisioning the summit as a springboard for empowerment, not just for herself, but as a communal launchpad. The day of the summit arrived, and electric tension buzzing in the air. Mia stood at the entrance of the venue, welcoming individuals whose resistance had turned into determination. When it came time for her to speak, she took a deep breath, anchoring her newfound confidence in the values instilled by her grandfather. "Today," she began, her voice unwavering, "we are here, not isolated, but united. Each story shared today is a step towards dismantling the isolation, grief, and fear that have plagued us for too long. Together, our dreams form the foundation of our future." The warmth of connection enveloped the room as more than just words were exchanged. They were sharing destinies. Articulate expressions of ambition flowed from her neighbors, sparking reactions from those who listened. Each voice echoed through the halls, vibrant and alive. As Mia stepped off the stage, a wave of accomplishment flooded over her. She had catalyzed the transformation from not just aspiring for change, but actively becoming it. This was no longer just a gathering, it was a movement. Months later, as she stood in her own small office space, now dedicated to advocacy, she reflected on her journey. The diner still served as a meeting spot, but now it buzzed as a hub for community organization, brimming with promise and relentless ambition.
She had established her position not just as a voice, but as an advocate, a force committed to catalyzing hope within the foundations of their society. Mia felt a profound reverence for her growth. She had embraced uncertainty, turned challenges into opportunities, and stitched her dreams into a larger canvas. Her late grandfather's wisdom persisted, whispering encouragement. The hard work was paying off. She had conquered doubt and emerged with clarity, strength, and resilience. And in that moment of quiet reflection, Mia Sanchez realized she wasn't just making a difference. She had become the change she desperately sought, inspiring countless others to do the same. Now it's your turn to take action. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. This is the moment to show your support. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending. We want to hear your thoughts. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second to share. Only true fans of personal overcoming stories understand the importance of supporting our channel and this powerful journey.